He who knows when to fight and when one shouldn't will be victorious. The prudent man who lies in wait for an imprudent enemy will be victorious. Entice the enemy with blandishments, feign disorder, and crush him. Pretend inferiority to encourage his arrogance. Wisdom from Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Many are scratching their heads still about Florida. They never saw it coming. How could this state, the least southern of all the southern states, allegedly, have defeated the left so soundly, so completely? Well, we have a secret weapon. We have something that everyone sees, but no one really understands. We have the wisdom of the old folks from all over who have spent years, decades even, in the political arena. And they understand how these games are played. Things are not always as they seem. In today's video, I'm going to share with you this mistake made by the left in Florida and how I'm starting to see that same mistake come out in the right. And I'd like to use this as a cautionary tale. Things are not always as they seem. In Florida, in our state house, we have nearly a 2-to-1 advantage. Meaning, for all real intents and purposes, the Democrats that are in our state house have to work with conservatives to get anything done first, and then we'll address any of their own concerns. In our Senate, we have the equivalent of a 60-40 majority, 24-16. That has also given us the ability to make sure every single member of our Supreme Court is about as conservative as you can get. They're all members of the Federalist Society. I've said before, and I'll say again, the governor in Florida is not a cause. He's an effect. All this groundwork was laid, but what's going on now that could risk this? What's going on now across the country that could put this in peril? Now, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this and go, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with Florida. Well, it kind of does. These are the last two remaining in D.C. Senate Blue Dog Democrats, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. I'm sure many of you have seen these people in the news because they're more conservative in a Democrat Party moving way far to the left. You see, it gives them power. But not only does it give these two individuals power, it really, and the left isn't seeing this, it gives them power. If they were smart, they would be getting a lot more Blue Dog Democrats involved. You would see more Tom Dashells. You would see more Democrats that were more conservative leaning because it would give them an enormous advantage. The left is shooting themselves in the foot right now. And like Sun Tzu also said, when your enemy is making a mistake, don't interrupt him. You see, the farther left, the farther fringe that party goes, the less power they're going to have. Now, here in Florida, Representative Anthony Sabatini and a few others, Matt Gaetz, have decided they want to go on what they call this rhino hunt. They want to get rid of all of the Republican in name only Republicans that are allegedly in our House and Senate. Well, those Republicans in name only are placeholders. And this is something I think they might be missing. You see, it's easier to primary a rhino than it is to defeat a conservative Democrat. I know that sounds confusing, but if you take somebody who is a fringe member of either party and you put them up against a more moderate centrist of the other party, they lose every time. Now, when it's apples versus apples, where you have a leftist way over on the left and you have somebody way over on the right running against each other, well, then it's just going to come down to demographics. This is why rhinos, meaning moving more toward the center, always defeat the far left. That's the big mistake they've made in Florida. You see, they're absolutely right. We do have some people in the Florida House and the Florida Senate that are more toward the middle. But in Florida, that makes absolute sense because we have such a large population of older folks. They're not going to be all that excited about voting for anyone who's fringe either direction. So what does that do? That maintains the numbers in the House and in the Senate. See, the problem with going all the way to the super, super far right, like with Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, look, I'm a conservative. I'm very conservative. I agree with a lot of their positions, but they're vulnerable. Why are they vulnerable? They're vulnerable because they have the ability to energize their enemies. See, the middle of the road types don't really energize the vote against crowd. Unless it's the left right now. You see, those middle of the road types on their side, the Kirsten Sinemas and the Joe Manchins, the left is going to shoot themselves in the foot because all they're going to have left are people way far to the left. And they don't realize how politics works. That the vast majority of the country is somewhere in the middle. So these three folks right here, you know, they make great candidates, but then once they get into office, they're incredibly vulnerable. Which leads us to this story coming out this weekend. Exclusive Republican National Committee reaches out to 12 million voters ahead of midterms. Now, people have looked at Ronna McDaniel and go, oh, Moe, she's a rhino. Well, look what she's actually done. And by the way, look who's in the background. Mark. 1 second here. The Republican National Committee, RNC, has contacted over 12 million voters ahead of midterms, including 5 million in Virginia ahead of the state's hotly contested governor's race. You see, it's these evil, terrible, horrible rhinos that have actually flipped this in Virginia. You couldn't have gone in to Virginia with somebody who was way, way, way far to the right and gotten this job done. Things have to happen in stages, and you have to use wisdom. See, if you put a rhino in and you put him in under threat of primary, meaning you can run as a rhino and you can, be a moderate, that's fine. But then when you get in and govern, you govern as a conservative, or you represent us as a conservative, or we will primary you next time out. That's a much easier lift, so to speak, for a conservative. The Republican National Committee boasts an unmatched data-driven infrastructure that continues to power our grassroots, community-oriented ground game across the country. Our multi-million-dollar commitment has allowed us to hire over 300 staffers on the ground so far, open community centers in battleground states, and contact over 12 million voters so far this cycle. This has been a genius ground game. The conservatives did it right. They did it right in Virginia. This is going to be a huge win for them. Sorry about all the ads here. Enthusiasm for Republican leadership has never been higher, and the RNC remains committed to electing Republicans up and down the ballot to ultimately take back the House and Senate in 2022. See, this is the idea. Now, Pennsylvania, the governor in Pennsylvania is in big trouble because now it's been outed what really happened in 2020. See, what really happened in 2020 was a money game and a people game. It wasn't some magical make-believe machine. And I'll give you the link to this article. It's from justthenews.com, how their governor took grants that were supposed to be given out evenly and routed them to Democrat areas. This is why Florida is the most conservative state in the entire country. See, they knew they had something here even back in the 1600s. They knew they had something worth fighting for here. That's why they built a fort 400 and something odd years ago to defend it at all cost. This doesn't look like much now, but the fact that it stood for over 400 years, at that time, building the fort at St. Augustine, that was a big deal. That was a big deal because youth, it's not the fountain of immortality here. Because age is just a number, and no one lives forever. But there was something about being here that gave you the ability to turn the clock back, so to speak, in your mind. And this is the real secret weapon in Florida. We have people in their 70s, people in their 80s, people in their 90s, acting like they are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they have the experience, and they have the energy and the wisdom to understand you don't do it all at once. You make this plan, and then you get this far, and then you make another plan, and then you keep moving the ball down the field slowly, to use a football analogy. If you can start a drive at your own 10-yard line, and you can take up the entire quarter and still get the touchdown and keep your opponent's offense off the field, that's how you win football games. And that's what really is going on in Florida. We keep the opponent's offense off the field. We do it slowly. We don't go for the big score, the big win. We do things incrementally. And this is what the governor has been so smart in doing. He has been lied about. He has been assailed. He has been castigated. They have done so many things to try to make this man look horrible on the world stage, and he has never once lost his cool. He's never once lost his composure. He has stayed with facts first, and he has continued week by week, month by month, moving the ball down the field, moving the conservative ball down the field. He hasn't come out and made some proclamation against rhinos or anything like this, or attacked people within his own party. He understands what the long game is. And I truly, honest to God, believe it comes from this. It comes from having the oldest, wisest, most experienced population in the entire country that don't get their feelings hurt so easily, that aren't swayed by every wind of emotion, because they've been through it all. These people have been through the wars, been through the turmoil of the 60s and the financial problems of the 70s and the fear of the 80s and the Cold War. And then the Clinton era and then the Obama era. They've been through this. They understand how to win. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys in today's video, that don't interrupt the left right now with Sinema and Manchin. We've put on a clinic the last 20, 30 years in Florida. If the left was smart, they'd be getting a lot more Sinema and Manchins out there, but they're not. They're just emotionally driven children. And if they get rid of these two, it will be their end. Because then everybody will just be fringe. They won't have a moderate to stand up and win any elections. And the hilarity of all this is what Pelosi has been trying to tell them. And they want to get rid of her because they don't think she's leftist enough. Imagine that. So I'll leave it there. But I'll reiterate this one more time. He who knows when to fight and when one shouldn't will be victorious. The prudent man who lies in wait for an imprudent enemy will also be victorious. Entice the enemy with blandishments, feign disorder, and crush him. Pretend inferiority to encourage his arrogance. Let's go, Brandon. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Happy Halloween.